n8n allows you to build complex logics in your workflow. But in order to build those complex logics, you need some special nodes which are used to control the data between the nodes. In this video, we will deep dive into the flow control nodes which are specific to build the complex logics in your workflows. Let's get into it. In this tutorial, first thing is to prepare the data, right? So I have prepared some sample data here in the data tables. So first one is appointments. So it's kind of a simple appointment table with the name, reason, date, and time. And then I created another table called service request, which is like name, phone number, what kind of service they are looking at, and is urgent service or is it a normal one, right? Things like that. So these two tables is what we are going to use to kind of understand how the flow logics within n8n works, right? So let's get into our workflow. So let's create a new workflow. So first thing we are going to use is called Telegram. So the Telegram trigger is what we are going to use here. So whenever we get a message, I have created my account. So in order to create your account, all you need to do is just install the bot further on your Telegram. So just go to this link. I will provide this link in the description. Go to this link and then click on this bot further and create a new bot with a name and the username, short username, and then it will provide you a token for that bot. Okay, so that's all you need. So the token, you can go ahead and take that token and then configure a new service, and then you paste the token here with the telegram api.org as a base URL, right? Once you finish that, you will create a credentials. That credential, you can use it for this trigger. So now this is our trigger, right? So if I go back to my mobile, so this is the Telegram app. I've already opened it. So my bot name is n8n bot, and here I can chat with the bot with this Telegram trigger node. Okay. So if I save this, and then in order to get the message, I need to execute the workflow. So now it is in execution mode. So now I can go here and say hi. So as you see here, the message came here. So this is the text message came from the Telegram, right? So that is the first step. I'm going to use two data tables. So simple data tables to fetch one from the appointments and then the other one from the service requests. Okay, so that is what I'm going to do. But before I get there, so I have already pulled the data and pinned it for our testing. If you remember in our last video, if you have not seen that video, we talked about how to data pin that so that we don't need to fetch it every time. We can use it for our testing, stuff like that. In our last video, I'll leave the link on the top. Please go ahead and watch that. So I just pinned this data. This is the two requests as part of the appointments table. And if I open this one, you can see the four requests as part of the service request table, all that, right? So I have pinned this data for our testing. So the first flow control step. So if I go to plus icon here and then select the flow is where all the flow control logic exists. So here, if you look at this one is a filter, which we have already seen how to do the filter. So first, and then there is an if condition, loop condition, merge, we have seen it, and then execute sub workflow and switch, right? So let's start with switch for this demo. Let's start with switch, okay? Switch is something like, whenever you get a value, what type of action you need to take. That is what switch means, okay? So if I go back here, put in between this, so I'll move this one. So I add this step here. So if I go here, so now I can see the input coming from here. So I take this hi, that message. So that is the input I'm going to use is equal to appointments. Okay. So if I type appointments in my Telegram, it will go through this node. Okay. So I can add different routes. Okay. So now again, I use the same text. Okay. And then I say service. Okay. Then add one more thing. And then I'll say all. I have added three routes. Okay. For this switch case, I have added three routes. Okay. So let's go here and see now what we have done is we have a telegram message coming in that telegram message, whatever the content of the text, based on that we are routing it into three different directions. So let us test this quickly, right? So I execute this workflow. So now I'm kind of testing this workflow, right? So if I click on execute, it is waiting for some input message. So if I go to my telegram message and say all, okay. So now if I go here, you see here, there is one input. So if I look at this one, so the text is all. So that is what it got. And this node got executed, but not this two nodes. So if I go here, since it is all, the third node got executed, right? So that is how it is. So if I go back here, so now the execution is stopped. So if I execute again and then go back here, and then I'll say appointments. So if I come back here, so you see here, the first node got executed. So it went to the first route. Okay. So that is what the switch node is for, right? So based on the input, I want to route it to different direction, and that is what it is. So first thing is appointments. So in this case, I want to send it to appointments. Second thing is service. So in this case, I'll send it to service. The third thing is all. So in this case, I will send it to both this and this, right? So this is how the route is going to work. So now if I execute, so now I have wired the connection between the switch and what action it needs to take. So now if I execute the workflow, go back to my Telegram, and then if I just say, if I just say all, so now if you look at it, so all got executed, and then it triggered this both nodes, and it fetched two appointments and then six service requests also, right? So this is the first step of the workflow. So now the second step is we are going to add another conditional node. Okay. So if I go here and say flow, and then there is an if. Okay, so let me add an if condition. So why we need if condition, right? So for example, if I look at the data, so for this data, you see here there are service requests which is urgent, true, and urgent is null, right? So I want to filter out only the service requests which are urgent. Okay, so in that case, I'll connect this one here and then open this if statement, and then if I take the value is urgent equals to true, right? If I execute that step, you'll see it only the two items which got is urgent true got filtered out. Okay, so that is the use of an if condition. So I can keep on adding more conditions, but right now, as you see here, the six items got split into two items where urgent is true and four items where urgent is not true, right? So that is the second step. Now, in this one, what we have here, the first appointments here. So we have the name, reason, and the date. The date format is like not very good in readable format, right? So we can also do a formatting for that date. Okay, so we go to data transformation. You see here date and time, and then format a date. Okay, so format a date, which date, the date and time field, and the output field name also will keep it same so that it will come as the same value, but only the things like this. Okay, but we want to use include input fields. Okay, so include input fields means so it will include all the fields. So now if you see here, the input has this date format, and then the output has this date format based on what we explained here, right? We can change it to any format based on whatever you need, or you can use a regular expression to format the date to a specific date time format also. So for now, let's keep it simple. So go with this date, simple date. So now we got two items from here, two items from here as a true. So now I want to merge these two items, which is a data transformation step, which we have seen in our previous video. So I'll go here and add this to here and add this to here. So now if I go here and then execute this, you will see four items coming in. Okay, two appointments and two service requests. Okay, so all four items got merged now, right? So 2 plus 2. So now, as you see here, there are four items So we pulled all the appointments, we pulled all the service requests, and then we formatted the date and filtered all the urgent service requests, and then merged all the data. Now we have total 4 items waiting for us. Okay. So nothing is going to happen, but right now, based on this input message, it filtered all the 4 items because we sent all as the message. So it filtered all the 4 items. It is waiting. So now the next important step which we can add here is the flow and then loop over items. Okay. So now there are 4 items. The goal is for each item, we need to iterate and send a message back to the Telegram channel, right? So that is what we are going to do. You see here, this is saying replace me. So that means we have to replace this step with a valid step. Okay. So if I click here and then go to Telegram and then send a text message. The only main thing here needed is the chat ID, which if you go here, this is the message chat ID here, right? So the chat ID, Telegram chat ID, and what message we need to send. Okay. So the message we need to send for now, we'll put as a sample text. Okay. Sample text. Okay. And then save it. Okay. So save it. So now I'm going to execute this and see what is going to happen. Okay. So now I go to my Telegram message and say same message all. Okay. So as I sent all, you see here 4 messages got responded with a sample text as a message, right? So it didn't give the proper response, but it just said sample, right? Because I put sample here. Okay. So, and also in this, if you see this message is sent automatically by n8n, that footer is coming. So we can disable that footer upon n8n attribution. We can disable that. By default, it is turned on. We'll disable that. And then instead of sample message, I'm going to send the name. Okay. And the details. Okay. So, and the details, name and the details of the from that message, original message. Okay. So now if I save it, okay, again execute the workflow. So it's waiting. Now I go back here and then say all. So now it is sending all the name and the reason, but for the first 2 things, it is not sending the name because appointment object doesn't have the details in it, right? Appointment has a reason and a date, but not the details. In the service request, we have what we have is the details, right? So the name and the details, but in the appointments, we don't have details. Okay, so that is why in the message, it is coming like this, but we don't know which one is appointment, which one is details also. So probably we can go ahead and change a small, make a small change in the workflow to add whether it is an appointment. If it is an appointment, handle it differently. If it is a service request, handle it differently, right? So for that, if I go here and add a simple if condition. So once you add a if condition, I'll open this one and then select this one and then select the first item here. And then you see the date time field here. So I'll take the date time field and then say exist, string exist. If the value of the date time field or the value exists, then only it moves to the next step, right? So that is what I'm going to tell. So only it will return those items. So it is, if it is true, it will return that. If it is false, it will not return that, right? So with that, we will save this and then execute the workflow and see what is happening right now. So if I say all again, so now it's going to send only the appointments, but not the service because appointments only have that 2 fields. So it is sending that. So now if I go back here, if I select this, so instead of details, I can send the reason. Okay. So reason, appointment reason, and the name. Okay. So I'll add this one more time here, name and reason and date time. Okay. So date underscore time, date underscore time. So now if I execute this, now for at least for the appointment, you will get a proper details. Okay. So if I save this and then execute the workflow and then go here and then say all. Okay. So if I say all, for appointments, it's saying Mohan and this date and the appointment detail. So I will also add a string here called appointment. Okay. So that we know this is an appointment, right? So now if I go say all, so now it says appointment Mohan Alti, the reason for the appointment, right? So clear. Now this format is clear, but there are two more items which is not an appointment, right? That will come as part of this another condition here, as part of the if condition, same if condition, false condition, right? So we will copy this same message node again and then say so this one is for true, right? This one is for false. So if it is false, what should we do, right? If it is false, what should we do? Again, send it to the loop back into this thing. And then if it is false, you send the name and the details, okay? So there is no details, okay? And we don't need the phone number or anything. So say, okay. So now this is not an appointment. This is a service request. Okay. So now we are adding a service request. So now we'll execute the workflow and then test. Okay. So if I say all, so now it is saying two appointments and two service requests with the proper format. Okay. So I don't see any errors or any null values. Everything is clear. So if I say all, it gives me all the values of the appointments and this thing. So if I say service, now it will provide only, okay, so sorry, it's one execution. So if I go execute again, so now it will give the service only, right? If I go and execute again, if I go here and say appointments, okay. If I say appointments, it will only give appointments. If I say all, it will give everything. If I say service, it will give only services. If I say appointment, it will give. So this is how this flows and all this filtering, loop over, everything works together, right? So now we see switch, how to switch based on the input. You take a different action, and then once you take the action and then filter based on the condition, and then merge both the nodes output, and then loop over the output and filter based on some condition, and then take an action over a loop again and again. So this is how this whole workflow works. Now that we have seen all the important flow controls like switch, if, loop over, and all these things, we will move on to another interesting area, which is very, very important, like a sub workflow. So now that this workflow, if you look at it, there are a lot of steps, okay? It is very clumsy. So I don't want to look at a huge workflow and struggle between all these nodes and wiring ups, okay? So this can keep growing. These workflows can keep really bigger and bigger when the use case is so huge, right? So what we can do, I wanted to convert this one. So let's name this workflow as a parent flow control workflow, right? Parent flow control workflow. Now I'm going to take this nodes and then convert it into a sub workflow so that there is a separate workflow which is going to send the message to Telegram, right? So based on the curated data, so this workflow, the main workflow is going to curate all the data and then send it to a sub workflow for sending the message. Okay. So we right click this and then say convert the 6 nodes into a sub workflow and then name the workflow as send telegram message. Okay. Send telegram message workflow. Okay. So now as you see here, what happens is after this step, it says you call at send telegram workflow. So it is a trigger flow, which is like calling a send telegram workflow. So as you see here, it's from the list, it says there is a workflow called send telegram message workflow, which got automatically created, and then it is linking to that workflow and it is sending the message ID. The Telegram triggers message chat ID. Okay. So now let us see, save this workflow. If I go to my personal folder, you see here, there is another workflow called send Telegram message workflow, right? If I go to that workflow, this is nothing but the same 6 pieces, but there is a workflow trigger node here, right? So if I open that node, you see here the input it is expecting is a message chat ID of any type. Okay. So that is the only input currently it is needed. Okay. So now this workflow is already published. So I don't need to publish that. If it is not published, when you run the parent workflow, it will give an error. Okay. So that is very important thing we need to note. Okay. The child workflow should be published before we use it in a parent workflow. So it is already published. Parent workflow not necessarily need to be published. So still we can test it using a test only mode. Okay. So now I'm going to do one more round of testing and then go back and then say all. So now you see it is messed up. Something got messed up. So now I'm seeing 4 service requests, which is totally wrong. Okay. So now we have to debug this and see what is missing. Okay. So now if we can go here, so the input is this array. And then here, this is the final output, not the intermediate steps, right? So to understand what happened really, we need to go to our child workflow. The child workflow is published already, so we cannot see it in here in the edit mode. So we have to go into the executions. So if you look at the executions and then go from the first node, as you see here, it only got the message IDs, nothing else. Okay, first problem. So only it got the message ID, nothing else. Okay, and then when I go into this, nothing else is there. So it is just the message ID, message ID, message ID, nothing is there. So if I go here, there is no date time field passed to this array. So since it has only the message ID, it is not working as expected. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to send the data, actual data. So the data, when I say data, here, whatever this is sending, the 4 values, we need to pass it to this also, right? So that is what we need to do. Okay. So let's execute one more time and see what the values we are getting. How do we pass it? Okay. So if I go here and say all, so now let's see. So now if I look at this, so this is giving a right value in a list, right? So this list, we need to pass it to this node as a list value. So for that, the first thing we need to do is go back to our parent, because right now the child workflow is taking only one input, which is the message ID. So we need to add another input called data. Okay. So we need to add another input called data and then say it is a array object. Okay. And then save this and then publish this. Okay, so then only it will get reflected on the original parent workflow, right? If we go back here, the parent workflow, and then open this up, now you can see here the message ID is there still. I don't see the data field, okay? But here it is saying refresh button. So if I refresh this, so now I see the data, okay? So this data is what we need to now pass the value, okay? How do we pass this data values? The data, remember, it is an array, okay? If we want to assign a data value, we need one field here, but this is not one field. As you see, this is returning 4 items, okay? So these 4 items cannot be assigned to one data field. So we first need to aggregate. So when I open this aggregate, so it says individual fields. I don't want individual fields, but I want all the items into a single list. Okay, so that is what. And the output field name is what it's saying automatically, data, but we can call it whatever we want. Okay, so if I execute that now, it is all the items, the 4 items are merged and put it inside a list. And then that list has one single element called data, right? When I go back here, so now the data is there, so I can drag and drop the data into this field. Okay, so now we have to make sure the value is an array, right? The value is an array without any additional fields. It's clearly sending all the expected fields. Okay, so now if I send it, it is going to send the right property. Okay, so that is what we are going to do. So now what we have done is we have taken this 4 items, which is coming from the merged step because it is merging all the items. So it is sending one by one and then aggregated into one item and then take that value, set it in the input. So now let us execute this and see what is going to happen. Okay. So now if I execute this, still it is executed properly, but still there is a problem. Okay. So in the main workflow, I don't see any problem. But if I go back to the send telegram workflow, let's see executions and then see where is the problem. Okay. So if I go here, so now, as you see here, the values are coming properly. So the message ID is good, the data looks good, everything looks good. But when I go to the loop function is not taking the value from the data. It is taking the value from the overall items, right? So the one item is this item. So it is taking this as, consider this as one first item in this list, and it is not executing it, right? If I go back to the table, you see there is only one item here, right? So it says one item here. So this one item is what executed in this step. But we don't want that one item, right? We want just the data value, which is an array, right? So for a loop to properly work, we need multiple items, right? Not one item. So as you see in the execution clearly, it says it is getting one item. So that is why this loop is not executing and properly. And also here we get one response back. Okay. So now if I go back to the editor, so what we need to do is we need to split the data coming here as part of this data element, split this into 4 items. Okay. So there we aggregated it when we are sending it. Here we need to split it. So if I go transform and then select split out, and I need the data field. So this data is the field. Okay, so we see here the definition. So the data is the field based on which we need to split out. Okay, so if I take this data field and drop it here and then save this workflow. Okay, so now the split out is completed properly, right? So now the split is completed. So publish it. Okay, so that's very important, right? So when you add the split, we have to publish this workflow, and then it is now ready for taking the request. Okay, so now when I go back to the parent workflow, so put it in execution mode and then say all. So now I'm getting proper messages, right? So now everything is set right. So now I'm going to publish the main workflow also. Okay, so publish the main workflow also. So everything is published now. So now if I go back here, so I go into my messages, clear all my messages so that I can test from the beginning. So if I say service, so now it is only providing me all the service requests. Okay. So when I say appointments, now it's only giving the appointments from the list. Now if I say all, it provides all appointments and services. Okay. So that is how easy is to manage or build a chatbot with a simple workflow with all the flow control logics involved in it. Okay. So now one good thing is we can go ahead and see the last three executions what we made, right? So if I click on this one, so first time what I did, I said services. Okay. So it went ahead and take this service route and only service got executed, and then only 2 items filtered, 2 items sent to it, and then merged and sent to the workflow. And then second time when I sent, it I said appointments, so it went to the first node and then it went here, and then the 2 items got dispatched, only the appointment related item. The last time when I executed, I sent all, so I took the third route here, and then both both data are fetched and then sent all the 4 items. Okay, same way if I go back to the send telegram message and then go to execution, so 3 executions, last 3 executions, if you look at it, the first time when it got the message, so it got 2 items, that is services, only the service items. As you see here, phone number and details are there. Okay. And then it went ahead and sent only the service message, um, not the appointment message. Okay. Second time when I executed it, it only got the appointment message. So it went into the first loop and sent the appointment messages, not the service messages. Okay. So if I go here, you can see the appointment reason and the date and time. Okay. And then the third time when I executed, it got all the four items like details of the services, service request, and the reason and date time of the appointment. So based on that, both loops are executed. Send service message is also executed, and also the send appointment loop also executed. With that, we have completed all the core building blocks of flow logics in n8n, right? So you can go ahead and try creating small workflows and play with all the small flow logic nodes until you get comfortable. Once you are ready with that, then you can go ahead and build your production workflow, which will accelerate your speed because your foundations are very strong. It will help you to build a proper, robust, production-ready workflows. With that, we have come to the end of this video. Please subscribe to our channel and share these videos to your friend. See you in our next video. Until then, take care. Bye.